Yes, there we go. See,
Yeah,
it was your phone. It was your phone, your live. That was up.
we were live for over an hour.
Yeah, I ran out of steam. What up?
Man, we were just talking about some heavy stuff, man.
Yeah.
It's crazy what's going on there, and I was trying to I made the analogy. I said, look, there's a lot of people out there right now that are acting like thermometers, right? They're reacting to the temperature. They're not creating the change that they want. They're reacting in their environment. And I just said, look, we got to be like thermostats right now, people. And, you know, we got to be part of the change of the environment, not reacting to it. And, it was interesting because before I can even finish sentences, it was, what do you know? It was like almost like this heavy pushback on like, dude, you're just a rich white guy type of pushback. And I had to just keep talking through it because I think it's healthy right now for people to understand like these conversations are so needed. And
100. Like, what kind of stuff were you getting pushback on? Like, what statements?
I mean, it's hard to remember because we talked for an hour, but it's like before you even say anything, they look at my video, they go, "Be careful, Cody. Tread lightly. You better watch what you say." You know,
Right.
and then the defensive, like, what do you know? How can you ever relate? You know, stick to real estate.
Yeah.
All that kind of stuff, and you're just like, damn. How did we become so desensitized as human beings that we can't even have a conversation anymore without labels, attacks, blaming,
Yeah.
victimizing, all this stuff? And I know we have talked. They would say, name your black friends. I'm like, oh man, that's messed up. That I gotta literally count my black friends to even be
Right.
somebody that you would even listen to for 5 seconds that has an opinion.
Right.
Uh,
I think right now what you have is both sides. It's more than just people being desensitized. It's just people angry, right? And when on all sides, shout out to Grant, what up, man? On all sides, when you have people who are so hurt, you're getting mass generalizations for starters, and you're getting people who are saying how they feel, and people want to be logical about their irrational feelings. You know what I'm saying? So like people, when you're emotional and you're mad, like say like I punch you in the face or you're hurt or your girl just left you, if you're talking to me and you're venting, you're going to say all kinds. But in that moment, because you're my boy, I'm going to listen. I know you're saying some that's not perfect. I know you're saying some things that aren't the wrapped in a bow, etc. But like, I'm going to be all ears because your girl just left you or you just got jumped, or whatever it is, right? So I think what's happening is right now you got people who are trying to be logical about emotions, and emotions aren't logical. They make sense as to why they happen. But I think that's probably where, on all sides, the message is getting a little bit up. But I think also too, the comments that I see, at least, and I can only speak as a black man, right? I can't speak as a white man like you can, but I think where I think where the challenge comes is people's ill understanding of that wealth and knowledge is passed down generationally. So, for example, I see the comment that makes me annoyed is when people say something like this, and usually it's white people, not all the time, but most of the time it is. They go, slavery was 200 years ago. Are you kidding me? Like, those things don't even apply anymore. And they act like it's so far removed. But what they don't understand, again, is knowledge is passed down generationally. So, for example, my grandfather's dad, right, was dealing with issues of voting, not being counted as a vote, slavery, being forced to live in communities that were filled with drugs, murder, violence. And then remember, just our parents, they barely escaped the hills of segregation, where you and I wouldn't have even been allowed to be friends. We couldn't even drink out of the same water fountain. This is not a long time ago. This is our parents. So you got to remember, our votes didn't even count as a full vote for some time. And so as generations go, like my great grandfather's aspirations wasn't to be successful. It was to be free. And then their next generations wasn't to fall out of control. It was to survive. Like my parents both grew up on welfare. their focus wasn't on success like yours and mine's are. Theirs was getting out of welfare. My mom, my mom's brother was like drugs, like murdered. My grandfather was murdered, like gambling. But people think this is because like black people act like this way. No, it was systematic from 200 years ago. And what you're seeing is the dust settling from what happened before. And that's the lack of empathy that people are missing. Is it's not just because like people want to state facts and shit like, oh, look at the blacks crime rate. Well, look why we have crime. Because for generations, we have been forced and grown in crime areas. That's not a black thing. You put any color there and they're going to get the same result. And I think where you see the frustration from black people especially is when people don't acknowledge that. Like you hear people say, like, we all have opportunities now. Listen, if your grandfather was Warren Buffett, then let me tell you, your life would be different right now. My life would be different too if it was. And that's what people got to realize is people always understand the saying, you're the average of the 5 people that you hang out with the most. Well, imagine if for generations, those 5 people, no one made $40,000 a year.
Mm.
You see what I'm saying? Like, and I think that's the thing is where people are frustrated now is because, as black people, we're getting, put in, people are labeling us and saying horrible things about us as a community without taking into account why that is. And that's the part. And then there's the part too where, hey, the situation is what it is. And now we just got to take what it is and we got to do our thing. So my whole thing is like, look, those are the reasons why we're here and those are true and factual, but it is what it is. So now we have to come together and just do our thing. And my thing is, I'm not waiting for somebody to make a law, give me permission, etc. We're going to do the thing. And so, I don't know, man. That's the thing. Like someone in the comments says, Irish, Italians, Jews, blacks have all been slaves. Bitch, we were slaves in America where we are right here. Like, I don't know. I just think the ignorance is just crazy for people to not understand where history played a role in landing us in this spot today. And I think that's the thing is, I'm a big fan of like nobody should have victim mentality, you, me, anyone. However, I think where the message is lost is no one should have empathy for themselves, but everybody should have empathy for others.
Mm.
Like if you're like, if I catch you as my boy and like you're having a moment, I'm like, yo, snap out of that. Let's go. If I see you having empathy for somebody else who's struggling, I'm like, that's my guy. He gives. And I think that's where people are getting lost in translation a little bit. If that brings a little bit of clarity, so to speak.
Where do we go from here? Because a lot of it was a conversation about, all right, I got it. Right?
Yeah.
There's pain. I'm with you. Racism is an evil that needs to be dealt with. I'm with you.
Mm-hmm.
Police brutality may or may not be a problem. I don't know.
Sure.
It's hard for me to, people do logically default to statistics. But whether it is or it isn't, what is the plan?
Well, I'll give you one thing. So first of all, the only plan is to become, period. Like for everybody who has a problem with anything, you got a problem with the cops, you got to become a cop, right? You got to run that, be the commissioner. You got a problem with the way that the legal system is, you got to become the prosecutor, become the defendant, become the Supreme Court justice. You got to do the thing. So my whole thing is empowerment in becoming, because honestly, waiting on anybody else is a horrible game plan. Having said that, support is always welcomed. For example, when I see, what's crazy thing to me is how people defend the Confederate flag. You go to the South, people love the Confederate flag. I'm like, that literally stood for me being a slave. Like, you would own me right now, Cody. Granted, that battle went a different direction. Like, are people realizing that? But they just go, nah, man, come on, it doesn't mean either. If you go to Germany, you are not seeing swastikas popping everywhere. People aren't like, nope, that was a part of our history. That's not a thing. These are not like, oh, hey, look at the swastika right now. Like, what? What? But here, Confederate flag, it doesn't mean anything. It's nuts. And people get so upset about the flag, right? Like, hey, if somebody, like when Colin Kaepernick, right, he took a lot of shots for taking a knee. He's like, hey, man, like, I don't think so. And you got to think about it. If you saw your entire family and your friends that were consistently being in your eyes disrespected, treated less than, less than, not being counted as a vote. If you saw what was happening and you didn't take a stand for the same things that other people take a stand for with the flag, like, how does that not make sense? So, like, take us as boys, okay? Me and you, friends, you're my guy. So imagine if for 100 years I saw you going through hell. I saw you having all kinds of disadvantages. I saw you and your family struggling. And then it was all in the name of the flag. And then I asked you to say the Pledge of Allegiance with me. Like, isn't that a strange request? Like, through slavery, and segregation. Like, I want to remind people, 1960 was not a long time ago. 1960 was not a long time ago. I believe it was 59 when segregation got done. I couldn't drink in the same water fountain. And I'm not talking about way in the past. These are my grandparents. My grandparents were not allowed to drink the same, go to the same schools. And when we tried to go to the same school, they were beaten. The Little Rock Nine. Look it up. This was real. And then you say, now say Pledge of Allegiance. Excuse me? What was that? Now say Pledge of Allegiance. What? What? You know what I'm saying? Like, it's crazy. When you really think about that, it's crazy. Now say the Pledge of Allegiance. So I just think there's a lot of, just a lack of empathy. You know what I'm saying? Like, and people, again, it's not about like being wrong or right. It's about love. It's about support. It's about equality, right? And if me and you were running a race, and if me and you were running a race for 50 years, and for 48 of those years, you had 2 legs and I had 1, and then you finally got 2, but you're already way ahead of me, and they're like, come on, man, you have the same fucking benefits as me. You got 2 legs, let's go. Like, well, you were lapping me for 2 years. You were lapping me for 2 years. You know I got to catch up, right? You know I got to get my community, right? You know I got to get these drugs out of my community. You know I got to educate my people and teach them what the stock market is. You know I need to teach them about this finance game because y'all had a head start. So you know I gotta do these things, right? Like, we're running the same race. Okay, let me get my. See what I'm saying? Like, people don't think about that though, and that is what people are referring to as privilege. Privilege is not like Cody had a handout, right? Privilege is not like, hey, Cody, this, because I know your story and you come up and it's incredible. But people don't realize is the God-given privilege, which was to be born with grandparents that had 2 legs. My grandparents had 1. It doesn't make you a bad person though. That's where a lot of people get twisted. Cody is not a bad person for his grandpa having 2 legs, because guess what? My daughter is going to have 3 legs. She's rich. She's balling. She's connected. My daughter is privileged. See how I can say that? And I own it. I don't say no. Like, if my daughter came in this, if my daughter said, Dad, I'm not privileged, I work for my own, I would smack her and then not let her out of the house for a year until she has some damn sense. You're like, what? My daughter is privileged as a, like, her standard is Bentley, Corvette, Ferrari, standing on stages, meeting the coolest people, penthouses, and she's 4. You understand the misunderstanding, the entitlement, the ridiculousness of my daughter trying to say she doesn't have privilege. That's how a lot of Black people feel right now, right? Again, my parents both grew up on welfare. My mom was one of 13. Community riddled with violence and sexual abuse. And it wasn't because she made a bunch of the wrong decisions. It was because her grandfather had dark skin. And that is a fact.
If you want another awesome video in our Black Excellence series, check out the video right there next to me. I think you'll enjoy it. Continue to believe, and I'll see you there.